The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Captain Sarah Chen walked through the massive doors, her boots echoing against the crystalline floor. Representatives from a dozen species turned their various optical organs toward her, their expressions ranging from disbelief to outright terror. In her hands she carried a simple metal case that seemed to hum with an energy that made the air itself shiver. Ambassador Zexthul of the Vorthon Empire was the first to speak, his forearms trembling as he pointed at the human. "Impossible," he wheezed through his breathing apparatus. "The Void Nexus is certain death. No organic matter has ever returned from its depths." Sarah smiled, setting the case down on the central platform with a deliberate thunk that made several delegates flinch. "Well, gentlemen and ladies, and whatever the Klaxons identify as, I'm here to tell you that your intel was slightly off. 3 weeks earlier, the human exploration vessel Persistence had been declared lost after venturing into the Void Nexus, a region of space where reality itself seemed to break down. It was a place where ships vanished without trace, where long-range sensors failed, and where the laws of physics apparently took a vacation. The Galactic Council had forbidden exploration of the region for over 1,000 years after losing 17 expeditions in a single decade. Humans, being humans, had taken this as more of a suggestion than a rule. Dr. Ketharan, the Council's chief xenobiologist, leaned forward with his insectoid frame clicking nervously. "Captain Chen, our calculations show that the temporal distortions alone should have aged you to dust. The gravitational shears should have torn your ship apart at the molecular level." "How did you survive?" Sarah interrupted, popping open the case with casual confidence. "Same way we survived the Martian dust storms, the Europa deep ice, and that particularly nasty black hole near Proxima. We adapted." Inside the case, nestled in protective foam, were objects that shouldn't exist, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around themselves, metal fragments that appeared solid but cast no shadow, and what looked like a small star contained in a transparent sphere, pulsing with its own heartbeat. "These are samples from the heart of the Nexus," Sarah continued, lifting the star sphere and watching as several delegates instinctively backed away. "Turns out the void isn't empty at all. It's full of the most incredible life forms we've ever encountered. They just exist in dimensions we hadn't figured out how to perceive yet." The Vrex delegate, a gaseous being contained within an environmental suit, spoke in harmonics that the translator rendered as pure skepticism. "You expect us to believe that humans succeeded where our greatest scientists failed?" Sarah shrugged. "Look, I get it. You guys have been doing the space thing a lot longer than us. You've got technology we can barely comprehend. Lifespans that make our civilizations look like mayflies, wisdom accumulated over millennia. But here's the thing. Sometimes being new to the game is an advantage." She walked around the platform, addressing each delegate directly. "When we first heard about the Void Nexus, you know what our reaction was? Not 'this is impossible' or 'the ancients forbid it.' We said neat. A puzzle. Then we spent 6 months figuring out how to solve it." Dr. Ketharan's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "But the mathematics were based on the assumption that consciousness can't exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously," Sarah finished. "Turns out human brains are just weird enough to handle it. Something about our neural plasticity, our tendency toward pattern recognition in chaos, and, according to the void entities, our remarkable ability to function despite having absolutely no idea what we're doing." She picked up one of the crystalline structures, and several delegates gasped as it began to glow in response to her touch. "The beings in the void were actually quite friendly once we figured out how to communicate. They've been watching our galaxy for eons, waiting for someone to visit. They were starting to think we were all too scared to try." Ambassador Zexthul's breathing apparatus wheezed faster. "What did they want? What did they offer?" "Knowledge," Sarah said simply. "Technologies that could revolutionize everything from faster-than-light travel to dimensional engineering. Medical techniques that could extend lifespans indefinitely. Art and literature from civilizations that exist outside our understanding of time itself." The chamber erupted in multiple languages as delegates began talking over each other. The implications were staggering. If humans had made contact with extra-dimensional beings, it would shift the entire power balance of the galaxy. Sarah raised her hand for silence. "But here's the thing they told me that really stuck. They said they'd been waiting specifically for humans to show up. Not because we're the smartest or the strongest or the most advanced. but because we're the only species they'd encountered that consistently responds to, "This is impossible," with, "Hold my beer and watch this." She closed the case with a satisfied snap. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations. They're offering to share their knowledge freely with the entire galaxy, but they have one condition: humans get to be the intermediaries. Something about our refreshingly irrational optimism and catastrophically poor risk assessment skills, making us ideal ambassadors for impossible situations. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Ambassador Zexthul spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "What do they want in return?" Sarah's grin widened. "They want to know if we've figured out how to make coffee that tastes good in zero gravity. Apparently they've been working on that problem for about 3,000 years. As the council chamber descended into chaos, Sarah couldn't help but chuckle. Humans had just accidentally become the most important species in the galaxy, and all because they'd been too stubborn to accept that something was impossible. In her pocket, her communicator buzzed with a message from the Persistence. "Mission Control, this is Henderson. We've found something else out here. You're going to want to see this. Also, we're running low on coffee. Send supplies." Some things, Sarah reflected, never changed.